Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IT On Call podcast. I'm your host, Ross to the Rescue Feldman. My business is Better Call IT. If business technology is your Advil, Better Call IT is your If business technology is your headache, Better Call IT is your Advil. I haven't stumbled on that ever and forever.
It's
That's
fine.
that's troublesome, Kate.
It's fine.
This is not a good start.
This is live, but we're going to be fine.
Yeah, Kate and I connected a few years ago, and she was in need of some help with her email and her domain and her bookkeeping software and her everything computer. And honestly, I've had the business 25 years. I've really started to niche it down into working with virtual businesses that just don't do brick and mortar or work out of the home where everyone's remote. And I really specialize in that sort of business. And Kate, honestly, I think you're a great fit for the business. I'm glad we're connected. Tell me, how'd you get started in bookkeeping?
Yeah, so I'm Kate Josephine Johnson. I always throw my middle name in there because there's a lot of Kate Johnsons out there. I'm married into an ordinary name, and my firm is Heritage Business Services. Been around in a growing capacity since about 2017. Started when my kids were young, and I have an MBA, and I wanted to, but I'm a Navy spouse, and I had to quit a couple of jobs in like less than a year because the Navy doesn't ask me what my career goals are. And I knew at that point I became like a reluctant entrepreneur, I would say. I never dreamed of being a business owner as like a young kid or even in school or even in business school. I thought I was going to be like on a corporate track. But I'm glad to that decision to start my business changed the whole trajectory of my family's life. Honestly, I was able to earn a living from anywhere. So in a way, like I'm one of your ideal clients, Ross. You're probably one of my ideal clients. I work completely virtually. I walk by a client's house every morning, and I would never talk bookkeeping with her at her house in person. Like I'm only gonna, even though she's like a neighbor, we're gonna serve each other virtually because that's how my business is set up. And yeah, so I help people with their business bookkeeping. I love the small business owner. So my niche is definitely like million and below. And I have a teaching spirit, and so I think one of the things that is unique about me is I love training business owners on how to do their own bookkeeping at first, because I think there's not a lot of people who want to help that, but it's so needed in the marketplace. So I do a lot of training. I have service offerings that are for that growing business owner who just needs a little help so their foundation is strong, with the goal of getting the heck out of the books as soon as possible, right? Like I outsource to a fractional bookkeeper, which is what I would consider myself. So that's kind of my background. Yeah.
I love that. And that's so great because I took a class. I went to school. I flunked out of college. I wasn't a very good student. And I've had this business so long. I took a class 2014 at the Small Business Center at the local community college, and that was business bookkeeping. I took a course on the business law, so I knew to get an LLC. I learned about Pierce the Veil. And business bookkeeping, they taught us QuickBooks. They did teach us QuickBooks. I don't think it was desktop. I think it was. I've been online since I've been bookkeeping. I used to do Excel spreadsheets, but I I learned about the chart of accounts and the general ledger and double ledger and keeping it very. And you say KISS. You talk about KISS constantly.
Yes.
Keeping it simple. You want your chart accounts to be simple. That your filing and your P&L looks simple and clean. And I got the compliment. I had a new CPA 2 years ago. She said, "Give me your P&L." I handed it to her, and her response was, "You have clean books." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God!" I was so worried, right? It was the ultimate compliment. How do you engage with a new business when they walk in your door? How does that process work?
Well, they walk in my virtual door via a Calendly link, but. Yeah, when they do that, I have a prospective client call, and I ask them two things. I say, tell me about your business and also where you're headed. So I don't just want to know what they do now. I want to know the 3 to 5 year dream plan, because there's a lot of things that can be done today to help plant those seeds. If you're going to have a baby in 2 years and you're going to ramp down, my advice is going to be different than if you're hoping to employ 20 people in 2 years' time. Okay,
Nice.
like that's so I start with that. Tell me about the business. the plans. And then I say, what was that pain point that made you call a bookkeeper? So there's all sorts of different answers for that. Some of them I can't help with, and so that helps. I'll be like, hey, I only work with FreshBooks software, so people, and I've kind of weeded, like, people don't really get on my calendar if they don't use FreshBooks, but every once in a while they do. So the software is a requirement for me. But then based on how they answer that question, what was that moment where you booked the call with me? Because it's never anyone's favorite call to book. I want to call a bookkeeper today. Then once they articulate that pain, then I know how to help. Are your books a mess? Do you need training? Are you behind on your taxes? Everyone's got different things. Or is it just like you want to be able to do project tracking and incremental billing for like a large project? Okay, well, that's a different service, right? And I can help with all those things. I don't file taxes, but I can support businesses in all sorts of ways, but I need to know what is hurting them when they sit down to do their books.
And then you have CPA firms you partner with that you recommend. Is that correct?
Oh, for sure. I intentionally don't do taxes, but I'm not a tax dummy. I have filed taxes as an IRS volunteer before, so I'm a volunteer tax preparer for the IRS VITA programs, is what it's called, for like low income and elderly people. But I don't want to do taxes, but I know taxes. But I always have to say, I'm not. This is not tax advice. Whenever people want to go there, but I give them the questions to ask. Like lots of times in my calls, I'm like, write this down. This is the email you need to send your CPA. How fast are we going to depreciate this asset, or whatever? I can tell them the exact thing to ask to make those communications more efficient, and then come to me for that ongoing bookkeeping. I would rather work with people all year long than the headache of the tax busy season.
It should be a seasonal, an annual, connected, like every week kind of business connection. It shouldn't be, hey, it's April 14th. Can you help me with my books?
Right.
That's not the right thing to do. And we were talking about acronyms. Keep it simple, silly, KISS. Another acronym is STOP, solve the owner's problem. And that's what we all do as services businesses. And bookkeeping is a problem. I want to say that your first hire when you're a CEO of a small business, being a solopreneur, is that CFO, is that bookkeeper. I swear that's everyone's second hire, or an office manager that does bookkeeping for you. It's always someone's second hire. I'm a fractional CTO. I'm the third or fourth hire after the CMO, or the chief diversity officer or HR person. I come in later. I don't want to come in later. I come into a mess of an IT stack. But we were talking about stacks, streamlining stacks. How would you recommend streamlining software and IT stacks?
Yeah, so if you're doing your own accounting, so right now I'm speaking to that business owner who still finds himself or herself in the books, right? You got to get off the TikTok and all this crazy advice about how to save this and do that and like, if you are not an accounting lover, then you need to keep your accounting as simple as possible. I think the number one tech stack to keep your accounting simple is a single bank account. Don't go chasing credit card points. Every time you open a new account, that makes your bookkeeping more complex, and that value that you think you're going to get from that complexity is going to be dwarfed by the effort required to do the books for it. Okay, like the amount of either paying someone or your time is not worth it. So single bank accounts, a bookkeeper can correct a lot of wrongs and a lot of sins in finances if we can download CSVs from like a single ledger of truth, right? And then you being religious about using that book, those financial accounts just for business, no personal, then I can tell a story. If a bookkeeper or if a business owner does that and comes to me with a bank account that has their whole financial history in it, I can tell we can work so fast. It's the, yeah, but I did. That's the stuff that like just grinds the admin work to a halt. So that's one advice. And there are banks out there, y'all, that almost act like an app. I use a bank called Relay Financial. I can't sing its praises enough, but it it fetches W-9s if I need to pay a contractor. Like I can pay bill. It's a bill pay. You can upload receipts. You can have automatic transfers whenever you get an invoice. If you want to be able to save for taxes, you can say every deposit into this account, immediately send 20% to my savings account. And that's a way to, like, in one logon, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff that is way more than just like the old school bank from like 20 years ago. And then the next thing is a streamlined like bookkeeping software that does a lot more than just invoicing. So I specialize in FreshBooks, but like it has estimates. I can get a signature on a proposal. I can upload my receipts there. I can track communication with clients if they've opened invoices or not. We can do partial payments, and I can get paid through that software. So with one bookkeeping software, I'm getting a lot done. And so that's kind of probably the next, like if you're doing your bookkeeping, if you just use those two things and don't get cute beyond that until you can hire that administrative person or that CFO who's nerdy about this and who really loves getting jazzed about all the extra bells and whistles that can be added on. You don't need it if you're building that business and you're the technical expert. You'll be financially better off just going and earning more money.
Yeah. And you talked about the nerd and the CFO, right? That, someone who really loves numbers or money or finances or processes. I'm not that person. I'm the touchy-feely sales guy. And so bookkeeping is a huge pain point for me. It's the thing I dread doing every week. I have to do it, and I have to keep everything, solvent. But it's one of those things that it's the thing I want to farm out as soon as possible. But there's a huge trust issue, right? Like, it's one of those people who trust me with their IT administrative credentials. I have full unfettered access to every single one of their systems, email, PC, backups, data, their CRM software. I can see everything. I have the keys to the kingdom. So they have to trust me, but I have to trust my bookkeeper that they're not going to, cook my books or take a little bit off the top for themselves. I have to keep track of them, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of people who say they do bookkeeping and CPA and all that sort of thing. But how does it go when you're trying to build that trust with the customer? Do they come off the bat with concern, or they don't even bring the concern up with you?
So the accounting term that you're talking about is the word controls. You would learn about it in like probably first or second accounting class in school. And I can't explain it all here, but like talking with someone and say, like, you could ask the phrase, what controls do you have in place to help me not only build trust with you, but build trust with your employees? Like you probably are going to make a hire of a practitioner too, of a technician who's going to like help you. They might need to be billing people or have a spend card or all sorts of other. So there's potential for fraud everywhere. And so accounting kind of assumes that we are going to, like, the nefarious actors are going to encounter your business. So this concept of controls is how we solve for that. So like with Relay Bank, there's like different levels of access. So I get invited to, I recommend the banks so much that clients of mine like switch to that software. You can invite your accountant to that, but it's just read-only access. So I can't do anything like cash wise. In terms of the bookkeeper, so that's one argument that people have for bookkeeper and a tax person being separate. That's a control. So you might get in trouble for a year if you're only talking to your tax filer once a year, but hopefully it's only 1 year and that tax filer has caught it, right? Because if the bookkeeper was doing something fishy that you didn't catch, we're not going too long. But if it's the same person and you're in that relationship for 5 years, who knows? So just this idea of controls, multiple people, like I would never say, Ross, let me pay all your bills. What you do is you say, Ross, I'm going to tee up all your bills. And once a week on Fridays, you're going to log into the system that we've set up because you've got a big enterprise and you're hiring me to do a lot of help. And on Friday, you're going to go hit pay. That's a two-person. So we're always thinking of stuff like that. I mean, there's thousands of examples of controls, but that's the mentality you want to approach a relationship with. And a good accountant will thrill. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, you care about like what kind of, people offer to give me logins to their bank. And I say, Absolutely not. Go get read-only access. I'm not gonna, because some people don't care. They're not as cautious as you are, and that's like if an accountant says yes to that, like they're yeah.
Yeah, I delegate access, 100%. GoDaddy does this with their domains. I have delegate access to about 4 dozen clients that I don't have their GoDaddy password. I have delegate access into their system. There's least privilege access. You mentioned read-only. The accountant only needs read-only on the bank account. They don't need to be able to do anything more. You mentioned your own human two-factor authentication, but two-factor authentication is really important for security, that if your password does get popped, that there is an extra layer to protect you, that you know you need to go back and change your password on that account. Are you using a password manager today?
I use LastPass.
LastPass. All right.
I hope that one's okay.
Yeah. I use Bitwarden, which is an open source one. I sell Keeper to my clients. The simple usage of a password manager is tremendous because you have all these passwords in all these websites that you can save for all your customers, and you can generate random passwords. What happened in LinkedIn was the passwords in LinkedIn were breached, and it was the same email and password they were using on their main email box. So once they had the username and password from LinkedIn, they went over and logged into the person's email and had unfederated access to all of that. So, it's important not to reuse passwords across multiple websites. We would do that as humans. If we are human writing all of our passwords down and they're the same iteration of the same type of password, it's going to be a problem. That's why we need to use password managers that generate random passwords for each website for us, so we just remember the one master password. So trust me, it's a change. I have clients who are close to tears that I'm trying to get them to use a password manager, and they're used to a piece of paper on their desk. And I'm like, I'm trying to get you to be more secure and safe, but I also want you to be comfortable and ready to go. I just had a client who does insurance sales, and he's on a piece of paper, and he keeps it on his desk, and he has to keep that piece of paper with him on his laptop. And I'm like, if they steal your bag that has your piece of paper with all your passwords and your laptop, you just gave them keys to your kingdom. So I put him on Dashlane, which is a very easy, user-friendly consumer version of a password manager. And now he's learning to use that password. But it was change, and change is hard for people.
So I'll say about that, because if your target listener of this podcast is a virtual firms who need, virtual businesses who are growing and scaling, I'm not coming at this from that IT security. I'm coming at it from ease of use. When I go to wellsfargo.com and I want to log in, and when I hit log in, my LastPass pops up, and so many people have invited me to their Wells Fargo. And to think that I would have to remember that is insanity. And I want to grow my business. So besides the security reasons, the efficiency reasons, and if I want to hire a team, that you can use those password managers to share with the team. So the client is inviting Heritage Business Services to the bank account, read-only access, but then our team can go do the reconciliations, right? So it's just efficient as well for virtual firms who are going to start to want to have tons of client passwords for all sorts of things.
And they trust us with the data. My other vertical is nonprofits. Nonprofits have a lot of donor data, and they have their community client data for their mission. And that data, we have to safeguard that data. In healthcare, there's HIPAA regulations about PII, personal identifiable information, and PHI, personal health information. And honestly, we're collecting that stuff on our websites. When our website asks for someone's name, email address, birth date, it's like all this personal information that we need to secure. And that's just it's an afterthought. And it's so sad. And the government is trying to put more regulations down to protect the consumer. That's what they're there, consumer protection. But, you and I, we're safeguarding the keys to the kingdom. You, the financial, me, the data. So, people trust us to do that. And we trust them to understand the importance of doing that. When a business comes to you and their books are a mess, how do you start to wade through that?
So I offer cleanup services. I do a diagnostic review first. So paid diagnostic review, they get a document from me and a video. I usually record about a 15-minute video when I'm done with the diagnostic. So they have a written and an audio version of what I've found, and I'll give them a quote for a cleanup. But and probably a lot of bookkeepers would have some sort of similar process. But what I'd like to say in general to answer that question is think about the opportunity cost of fixing the problem. So there are some people who are like, well, Kate, you help me fix it. But I'm going to participate in the they're going to participate in the fixing. And the thing I always let people know is, okay, so I do hourly services. I do project work as well, but people can book me by the hour. So that's a cash cost, but your butt is in the seat as well. So whatever your rate is, that's the real rate of you trying to fix your own books, right? So my hourly rate plus your hourly rate, is that the best use of your time? But that's the cost of like fixing those books. So there's just all sorts of ways you can start over. Again, if you were religious about your bank accounts and credit card accounts, we could start a new bookkeeping file, connect that data, bring all that, I think it's called the API, bringing that stuff in, and we can do bulk classifications, and we could get books, a brand new QuickBooks file or a brand new FreshBooks file done pretty quickly. So there's all sorts of ways to attack the problem. And I work with people on my intake call to figure out, like, do we start over? Do we outsource the fixing? Do you want to fix it with me? Those are all options.
Are you using a CRM for tracking your leads and your clients?
Oh man. So year 2025 is like my year to get organized. I've actually hired what I'm calling an operations coordinator, because I am realizing that I'm weak on that. So the answer is no. I have my billing software.
Not yet.
So I have an app, an email management system that I'm kind of leaning on for that.
Right.
I don't think it would call itself a CRM. It's called MailerLite. And it allows me to do quote unquote email marketing, right? I have a few freebies that people can download. If people book time with me, they get on that list too. It's kind of like, and I might send my new FreshBooks YouTube videos to them, or maybe an important tax update. But I'm not using the tags like I should. And so I think I need to tag the people like, oh, this person was an hourly training client. This person was a cleanup client. They're just kind of all in there. So I need help with all that.
I love that. Fractional COO. I know a couple of them. One of my fractional COOs is actually bringing me into two of the businesses that she works with, because they needed IT projects. So we all fractionally, you're a bookkeeper, you're fractional, you're fractional CFO, we all work together, right? We all facilitate business to each other.
What do you recommend for CRMs?
Well, for CRMs, HubSpot's a great start. I think HubSpot's a great start because it has a free platform, the freemium model, which is after you have 1,000 contacts, then you pay for it. I'm on QuickBooks, which MailChimp is owned by Intuit. And so they have a CRM component, but it leaves a lot to be desired. But there's an expensive platform called Go High Level that is extremely powerful, but you pay for the privilege of its power. So I always have that conversation with the business owner. I was like, okay, as you said, are you having a baby or are you having 20 clients? It's the same thing. It's like, what is your expectation of your CRM? What's your investment level on your CRM? I actually have someone who's a MSP sales coach, who's a HubSpot reseller, who actually engage with clients, who I say, hey, let's do the 35-minute training with him so you can get your feet wet with HubSpot, so you're comfortable with it, and then you're using it day to day. So, it's a great product. I'm in Charlotte. They have a meetup in Greenville that they do for HubSpot. That's the closest one that they do to us. And I'm like, Charlotte's bigger than Greenville, but, it's just one of those things.
That's an amazing model where a business owner, they should pay you more than what you said, 35-minute setup call. If I think a business owner should be willing to pay you for 3, 4, 5 hours to get that new piece of tech set up, if they're going to be someone who's like, I can't get the whole Ross that I want, but I can at least get a few hours of his brain. So that way, when I can afford Ross, I have put a good foundation. Otherwise, it's going to be more expensive to hire you, right? Like you're like, well, I'm going to be your fractional CTO, but first I have to do this, cleaning of the problem. And so with a bookkeeper, I think some of the best money, no matter what, pick a bookkeeping software, and then find an accounting professional who's willing to do one-on-one trainings, and have them set you up early. Otherwise, your items and services are going to be poorly mapped. You're not going to use your client list efficiently. There's so many things that we know about the tool that, like, in 1 hour, I can blow your mind. Like, oh, that's all I need to do. Maybe we'll help you document some processes so that sitting down to the books isn't a problem. It's like, I'm not sitting down to do my books. I'm sitting down to do these 10 things that Kate told me to do. That feels different than like, I got to open up HubSpot or I got to open up FreshBooks. So I love helping businesses do that.
Hire an expert, and it's like you're spending money, but you're saving time. It's going to take you 4 hours to learn something the expert already learned and will get done in a matter of minutes or moments or an hour or whatever. And like you're leaning on that expertise. I just looked, and it looks like FreshBooks actually did a blog post on you, which I think is amazing that they highlighted you and your capabilities.
Oh yeah, they did that maybe a couple years ago. I was still in Virginia at that point. Yeah, so
yeah.
I've gone all in, and just business owner to business owner, like you said, you have a couple of verticals. I think you're thinking smartly. I didn't start off in this niche. I think it takes time. I think everyone who says I'm going to start a niche from day one, they're tricking themselves. It's going to be different, 3 or 4 years down the road, but eventually hurrying to get to that spot where I'm the go-to girl for FreshBooks. Like, I YouTube about it, and I'm the only one doing that. So I decided to be a big fish in a small pond. So FreshBooks, QuickBooks is the big 900-pound gorilla in America. And I didn't think I was going to stand out as an accounting pro who was an expert in that. But I sure do stand out as an accounting pro who's an expert in FreshBooks. I can't serve everybody, but can I serve enough to make a great living for my family? Like, more than I can handle. Like,
I love that. And, you're serving the community. You're not a nonprofit, but you're, mission driven, right? Which is really good. If people are trying to reach out to you and want to know more and are intrigued and have FreshBooks or want to switch to FreshBooks, how can they reach you?
So my email is Kate@Heritage Business Services. I'm spending time this year trying to build my LinkedIn connections with other small business owners. And I know you stream there and we interact there on LinkedIn. So I would love, my name's Kate Josephine Johnson, and I have a little coffee cups next to my name so I can know the spammers. But I think those two, either shoot me an email or connect on LinkedIn, get into my DMs, or just interact with my content. I talk small business and FreshBooks.
I love that. Those are good languages to know, especially with this audience. And I'm very readily available at scheduleross.com. That's my Calendly. Kate's Calendly is on her website. Book time with us, chat with us, just have a conversation. And that's where it all starts. And
let me see, Ross, I've hired Ross, y'all. I called him once because I was really desperate, and then the few other times I've called him, it was because I wasn't even as desperate as I was that first time, but I was like, this is so worth it. I needed to be sitting with him because this idea of an opportunity cost, like I knew that maybe I could watch 10 YouTube videos and get my solution, but I would never feel confident that I did it right, and I would have wasted all that time watching YouTube videos about something I don't need to be an expert in. I don't know how to migrate domain or whatever little language you would use. Like, I'm not going to do that again. And if I do, I have to just call you to do it the one time, and then I can throw it out of my brain. Like, not for me. So I'm a paying customer of Ross's, like, in the history of my business, and I haven't regretted it at all. I wish I would have done it sooner.
I love it. Thanks, Kate. It's been great working with you.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody learned something new today. And feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you. I appreciate
it. Bye, y'all.